Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and we have 13 weeks left to go. How was double game week? Were you happy with the returns? Were you sad? Could you have done better? Could you have done worse? I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but I did not triple captain Haaland. He was my captain for sure, but I couldn't bring myself to triple captain him. He ultimately ended up with 10 points, which netted him 20 or 30. And for me, that's not good enough for a double game week. I just didn't think he would deliver against Chelsea. And if you watch the Brentford match, that was a tough one. The double game week was not what we expected. I'm sure a bunch of us expected at least Haaland to have 3 goals in these few fixtures. He only had 1. We expected clean sheets from Liverpool. They had none. So getting into the defense wasn't a great idea unless you had Virgil van Dijk. Sticking with Liverpool, Jota got injured. Nunez got injured. Salah came on. I had talked about him being a differential. He was. Not many of us had him. He also got injured. Trent was also out. When it comes to City, they underperformed. KDB didn't play the second game. Haaland only got 1 goal. Foden underperformed. And therefore, those of us who brought in all these players were very unfortunate because it didn't quite match our expectations. Of course, Luton assets and Brentford assets, no one was really counting on them to give us much. But if you had Ivan Toney or Reguilon, you did better than you hoped. This would be particularly painful if you got rid of Solanke like me, or your Arsenal midfield to bring in all of these players. And then on top of that, Liverpool are not playing this weekend. I mean, it's just pain all around. Over 37,000 managers triple captained Darwin Nunez. Not to be outdone, 50,111 managers triple captained Diogo Jota. We're all optimists, so we didn't expect either of them to go down. Let's see how Liverpool handle their absences because they have the final coming up against Chelsea this weekend. 8 people brought in Darwin Nunez. 4 people brought in Haaland. 4 people brought in Luis Diaz. 3 people brought in Diogo Jota and Virgil van Dijk. And that just goes to show that we tied with Liverpool's fortunes. And so a lot of us were going to be having a lot of maneuvering this week. Trent was the most popular transfer out of our teams, with 7 people removing him. That was a good call, well done. 6 people removed Watkins, Pole Sana. For the 4 of you who removed Alvarez, I hope you put in somebody else. And for Vic City who brought in Alvarez, well done, that was a good call. Also, Bonaji and Thagana, well done on bringing Højlund. He was a great return. Only one manager brought in Salah, and that was a good return as well. Arsenal have been the kings of high scores of late. They beat West Ham 6-0, and now they beat Burnley 5-0. They don't mess around with small teams. Saka had 2 goals, Havertz had 1, Odegaard and Trossard had 1 as well. Havertz, Kiwior, Odegaard and Trossard each had an assist. Odegaard had 3 points, tied with Saka, and then Havertz had 1 point. They are clicking at the right time in the Premier League. It's hard not to be hopeful if you're an Arsenal fan right now, especially watching City being unconvincing. Brighton also had a high-scoring game. 5-0 they won. They were helped by an early red card to Sheffield, but that's not their fault. They did what they needed to do. Adingra 2 goals, Bonanote and Welbeck had a goal as well. Robinson had an own goal on the other end. Mitoma had his first returns after the Asia Cup. He had 2 assists, Dunk had an assist, Gross and Ansu Fati had an assist. Brighton seem to be getting their players back and their form is improving. Liverpool had two 4-1 victories. So investing in the right assets for Liverpool would have been great. But the thing is, there were only 3 right decisions for Liverpool. 1. Luis Diaz. 2. Gakpo. 3. Nobody had him, I'm sure. McAllister. And 4. Virgil van Dijk. They delivered the goods over this double game week. It's just that we didn't know who to have, and therefore not many of us benefited. Although if you look at our top performers this week, they benefited from choosing the right Liverpool players. The average for the game week was 73. So if you got above 73, well done. It's not very often that the average of the week is that high. 17 over 24 players in our group got over 73 players. We are a tough league. Well done to everybody. The highest performers of the week came from Liverpool, with McAllister and Gakpo being tied with 17 points. In third place was Saka and Adingra, tied for 15. So it just goes to show that the double game week wasn't as great for returns as we would have wanted it to be. Because after Adingra you have Odegaard, João Gomez who are 14, Watkins 13, and then Rodri 13. That's when you get the next person who featured in the double game week. And after that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 players before you get another double game week player. So that wasn't a great return. Having said that, the best performing goalkeeper was Edison from the double game week. Followed by Sells, who is the Nottingham Forest keeper and a name I've not heard of yet. Then Kaminski, Raya, Flecken, and Verbruggen. Kelleher, the Liverpool keeper, is now 3.7. He keeps conceding silly goals, like yesterday's goal was a bit meh. So I wouldn't quite advise getting into Liverpool defense right now with him there. You'd rather wait for Alisson. When it comes to defense, Dunk and Walker were tied at the top with 12. Akanji got 11. Virgil van Dijk got 10. Kiwior got 9. And Ruben Diaz got 8. I hope some of you had those double game week players. The midfield, this season the midfield has been amazing, and the midfield continues to have the great returns. McAllister had 17. Saka and Adingra had 15. Odegaard and João Gomez had 14. João Gomez is 4.9 by the way. Rodrigo had 13. Havertz, Luis Diaz had 12. Trossard and Elliott had 11, along with Salah, who only played 1 game. Hudson-Odoi had 11 as well. And Chong was the secret midfielder from Luton, had you wanted to perform. Mitoma Kulevski had 9. Gross, Sterling, McNeil, Onana, and Gordon had 8. When it comes to forwards, Gakpo had 17. Watkins, Højlund had 13. Solanke had 12. Ogbene, great Luton player, had 11. Morris had 10. So scratch everything I said about Luton. They really had performers. It's just a matter of, did you get them? Haaland had 10, and that was a bit of an underperformance, but 30 points is 30 points if you used him as your triple captain. Semenyo and Muniz had 8. Tony Alvarez Awoniyi had 7. At the top of our league table, there was consolidation from number 1. Don't bottle it this year. Alexander Mutune, congratulations. You are doing your best not to bottle it this year. You had a staggering 109 points. Imagine number 1 getting 109 points. What are we supposed to do? 109 points, which gives him a total of 1555. He made only 1 transfer this week. He triple captained Haaland, who gave him 30 points. He had Darwin Núñez, who gave him 5. He had Ollie Watkins, who had 13. He had Rodri, who had 13. Well done in getting out of Souček. He had 15 from Saka. Luis Diaz gave him 12 and Foden gave him 5. In theory, if Manchester City performed better, he would have really flown away. Vex City triple captained as well. Haaland was his captain, 30 points. Solanke had 12. He brought in Alvarez, which gave him 7. Apart from that, his midfield let him down. De Bruyne only played 1 game. Palmer did nothing. Saka was amazing. Diogo Jota got injured, so that was unfortunate. He is also stuck with Areola. I don't know why. He gambled on Doughty, and that didn't work out. He had Burn from Newcastle, and that wasn't a great choice. Virgil van Dijk was the winner in his defense. He got 87 points. In third place, you have, goodness gracious me, who leapfrogged. Why are you running? By 2 points. And now he has 15-17, and Leon has 15-15. So Leon overtook Leon. Vic City has 15-29 points. He is 26 points behind Tune. Well done. That was a good week for you, Mr. Tune. That was a great double game week. With 109 points, you'd think that Tune was our highest performer, but he wasn't. At the bottom of the table, you have number 21, Mr. Jibril, who had 110 points. He had 1281 points. His team had no triple captains or anything like that. He didn't even make a transfer in for this week. Can you believe that? Haaland was his captain, 20 points. His second striker was Gakpo, 17 points. He had Luis Diaz, who had 12 points. Saka, who gave him 15. Odegaard, who gave him 14. Jota, who gave him 4. And Bowen, who gave him 2. Walker gave him 12. Mati Cash 2, Botman 1. And in goalkeeping, he had Edison Moraes, who gave him 11. And that was 110 without a transfer. Wow. Well done, Mr. Jibril. At the bottom of the table, Mr. Melvin Katharima was buoyed by Salah playing, although his captain is still Bruno Fernandes. If he honestly just had Haaland as his captain for the season, he would have been doing much, much better. He would have been ahead of Jeremiah Oberry, who he is only 2 points behind at the very bottom of the table. But those two are anchoring the bottom, and they're 200 points behind Moses Chege, manager of Team Kubwa, who has 1243. He was recently overtaken by Jibril, who had 110 and 60, so he got a 50-point swing. That's quite a big one. And then right above him, right above Mr. Jibril, is Enter the Woo, 91 points. So we have 110 as the highest, followed by 109, then followed by 2 players, Thagana and Cheese Ganachos, who had 92 each. And then we have Washira Gitahi and Tomi Oladipo, who had 91 points each. Well done. That is a great performance. And well done, Tommy. You said you believe in your team, and they're still here. If you haven't listened to that interview, go check it out. The best performing team had 162 points. Wow. He used the bench boost. Weber FC. Edison had 11. Virgil van Dijk had 10. Walker had 12. Saliba got 6. Trippier got 1. In midfield, he had Bruno Fernandes, who got 2. Odegaard, who had 14. 30 points from Saka. McAllister had 17. Solanke had 12. Watkins had 13. Vicario had 1. Estupinian had 1. Rodri and Gakpo had 13 and 17 respectively. This guy wasn't even playing with double game week in mind. No Haaland? Goodness. Tommy, there's some people like you who don't believe in Haaland. Wow, 162 points. What a great haul. Random facts. Saka has racked up 59 points in the last 6 matches. This means he's averaging just short of 10 points per game over the last 6 weeks. He is a must-buy at this point. Must. Watkins has 23 goals and assists this season. Only Salah has more. Muniz has 4 goals in his last 3 games. Awoniyi has scored or assisted 8 goals in 14 Premier League games this season. He returns. West Ham have not scored in their last 3 games. Neto has assisted 9 goals in 16 appearances. Only 2 players have more. Gakpo and McAllister were the best differential picks this weekend. Luke Shaw and Cunha are injured for the rest of the season. Saka and Watkins have been transferred out in every one of the last 4 game weeks, 300k and 800k in total. And in that period, they've picked up 49 points and 40 points over that same period. It goes to show it's really tough to pick a winner. The most transfers in this game week were Højlund, Saka, the Korean guy, Gross, Salah, Neto, Watkins, Gabriel, Odegaard, and Garnacho. And out of all of these, Højlund only has 11% ownership, the Korean guy 4.2%, and Garnacho 9.1% globally. Given the injuries, this list won't surprise you of the most transfers out. Jota, Pedro Porro, Darwin, Richarlison, probably because they miss next week, De Bruyne, Trent, Alisson, Cunha, Udogie, and Alvarez. Only Alvarez is there and it's not for injury, and Richarlison as well. Haaland has now scored against every Premier League club. Julian Alvarez is the only Manchester City player to play every single game this season. In case you're wondering who is unaffected by Pep Roulette, there is your answer. Rodri has 5 double-digit hauls. Haaland also has 5. Isn't that incredible? Some time back, Leon Moche was saying Rodri is sneaky good. The numbers confirm that. In case you're wondering who the others are, it is Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva with 3, and Alvarez with 2. Rasmus Højlund has been the best forward over the last 7 game weeks. Over the last 7 game weeks, he has attained 55 points. He has scored 7 goals. He has 3 double-digit hauls. He has gotten 10 bonus points, and he's gotten 9.2 points per start. And he is first in all of those categories. If you have a free hit, keep it for game week 29. It's going to be a real blank slate. As we look towards game week 26, the first thing we must note is that there will be a few teams not playing. And these teams are Chelsea, Spurs, Luton, and Liverpool. Which means that for some of us, that double game week has created problems for game week 26. The big question is, how many people are you willing not to have playing? I have 3 Liverpool players and 2 Chelsea players, so something's got to give. And I am not sure yet what I will do, but I will definitely make at least 1 to 3 transfers. The first game will be Aston Villa versus Nottingham Forest. Watkins was outstanding as he has been all season, and he scored 2 goals to defeat Fulham, 2-1. Now, Nottingham Forest are in questionable form. However, last week I said that the team that wins a game between West Ham and Nottingham Forest will have done themselves a really great favour, and Nottingham Forest came out on top. 2-0, and that was one of the few clean sheets that happened over the double game week. Aston Villa are the team in form, they're the better team. It should not be easy, but I believe they have enough to overcome Nottingham Forest. In their 3 recent Premier League encounters, Nottingham Forest won the last one, 2-0. Then, Aston Villa won the one before that, and they drew. So, it's really up to you to decide where this will go. I'm leaning towards Aston Villa, but as you can see, they're kind of even. If you're looking at Aston Villa players, you know you have to start with Ollie Watkins. Their defense has been suspect of late, so I wouldn't recommend even their wing-backs or even Emiliano Martinez. Just midfield up. And by that I just mean Tielemans, Diaby, Leon Bailey, Watkins. In the Nottingham Forest game, they beat West Ham 2-0 with Awoniyi and Callum Hudson-Odoi scoring, both at the end of both halves. Awoniyi at the end of first half and Hudson-Odoi to finish the game. I wouldn't jump into a Nottingham Forest defender, but if you had to, it would have to be one of the wing backs. It's just a matter of trying to pick out who it will be. They have so many. More predictable, however, is Awoniyi, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Morgan Gibbs-White. Forest have a bit of a tough stretch coming after Aston Villa, with Man U, the form team, Liverpool, Brighton, Luton. Those are not easy games, and they'll do well to come out with even 6 points. Villa have a stretch of winnable games. After Forest, they have Luton, then they have Spurs, then they have West Ham, they have Wolves, and then they have the rematch with City. Up until the City game, maybe the Spurs will be the trickiest tie, but they have the potential to win all of those games. So this might be the right time to get into Aston Villa players, should you not have any. Brighton versus Everton. Last time out, Brighton absolutely hammered Sheffield. It was a predictable outcome, and they did not fail to deliver. They are playing better opposition. With Everton, you really never know how it will go. And so, they are definitely better than Sheffield. It may not be 5-0, but I do believe that they will be able to score. Adingra coming back was a great boost. He had 2 goals. Welbeck and Buonanotte were really good as well. They had a clean sheet. I think this is their second one this season. Dunk is their best defender right now. And if you're looking for another midfield player, I would recommend Gross. Mitoma got a sneaky 9 points, so he may be a differential. But I would run to Adingra first. He seems to be more productive. Everton drew against Crystal Palace. This was a game of 2 bottom teams, and they both really needed the win. I initially thought that it would be easy for Everton to just avoid relegation, but with Luton's resurgence, it seems like it's not going to be as straightforward as I had initially thought it was. Everton will actually have to win. For Everton, Doucouré is back, so that's great. Their best chances really come from their defense. If they're able to be solid, they have a chance. But it's not their offense that carries them. I know it's a weird thing to say. But when their defense plays well, they win. I would look at Dwight McNeil, Doucouré. That's really about it. For this game, I wouldn't recommend a defender. Brighton are just too dangerous. Everton also have a stretch of tricky fixtures after this. They have West Ham, which is maybe their easiest game, then followed by Manchester United, then Liverpool, Bournemouth, Newcastle, and then they get to Burnley. On the other hand, this might be the right time to get into Brighton players. They have Everton, Wolves, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, and then Man City. So up until that point, those are winnable games for them. Crystal Palace versus Burnley. I don't know if you all know by now, but Roy Hodgson is no longer the manager of Crystal Palace. It was a bit of a sad ending. He fell sick and he stepped away, and now he's been replaced by Glasner, who was the Frankfurt manager when they recently had a good run in Europe. In my view, Roy is the kind of manager who you hire when you want to steady the ship in a some Allardyce type of way. He may have been a different type of manager earlier in his career, but from what I've seen over the last 10, 15 years, he has been the guy for steadying the ship, but not the guy for building a team. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, for example, I wouldn't be surprised if Glasner next year is doing nothing and gets sacked. They bring Roy back. He would be the kind of guy who would get them out of relegation. It will be interesting to see what Glasner does. Eze and Olise are out. I'm wondering if he has more ideas than Hodgson does. Well, I hope he does. Otherwise, Crystal Palace will struggle. They will survive because they're playing Burnley, and Burnley are definitely going down. This is a game they should win. This is a good game for Glasner. It's a soft landing, and he should take this present. Burnley are better now than they have been, but they're just not good enough. They will still be relying on Odober, Lyle Foster, Amdouni, and maybe Fofana. Burnley were horrible against Arsenal last time out, and they single-handedly ruined the double game week. And by that I mean they made having all these other players irrelevant. Saka 15, Havertz 12, Odegaard 14, Trossard 11. What kind of numbers are those? That's like a double game week. Haaland only got 10. They really messed up the double game week, making people remove the Arsenal players for nothing. People having KDB as captains. I'm so sorry. That is pure relegation form. Having said that, they're not playing Arsenal next. Crystal Palace aren't as good going forward. So they have to contend with Mateta, Ayew, and Edouard. That should be good for them. Coincidentally, those are the best players to get from Crystal Palace. At least until we know how the new manager has set up his team. After the Burnley game, Palace have Spurs, Luton, Newcastle, Forest and Bournemouth. In theory, I'm not going to say these are winnable games, but these are games where they can get a draw or something. Maybe apart from the Spurs game. But the rest, they can challenge, they can be competitive. As for Burnley, it doesn't matter who they're playing next. But just for fairness, they're playing Bournemouth, West Ham, Brentford, Chelsea, and Wolves. If it was another team, this would be a good set of fixtures, but it's Burnley. I don't know what to say about them. Just good luck. Manchester United against Fulham. Manchester United beat Luton last time out, 2-1, with 2 goals from Højlund. Højlund has 7 in 7. He has been in incredible form. I am going to bring him and Ollie Watkins into my team so that they can stop scoring. Because once I bring guys into my team, suddenly they forget how to play. Højlund has begun this year with a bang, and all Man U fans must be happy with him. 7 in 7 games. I don't know what he needs to do for you guys to bring him into your team, but yeah, that's it. You have him, you have Garnacho, and you have a sneaky McTominay, but that one is a real gamble. For Fulham, you have Willian, you have Muniz, who has been doing well. They lost their last game 2-1. He was the one who scored, but he has been in good form of late, and he is sneaky good. So if you're that kind of guy looking for a differential, that is your man. Apart from Muniz and Willian, you have Dico Doverid, Pereira, Palhinha. I thought Rashford was coming to life, but it was just a false alarm. After this Fulham game, Man U have Forest, then City, then Everton, Sheffield and Brentford. So this would be a good time to get into Man U. Maybe after the Man City game, but either way, they're still worth looking into. After Man United, Fulham have Brighton, Wolves, Spurs, Sheffield, Forest. These are all games in which they can be competitive in, and now that their players have returned, they should be better. Muniz has scored 4 in his last 4. Really look out for him. Bournemouth versus Man City. If anybody watched the Chelsea game, you will know that City can be gotten at. They have a weakness on the counter. If Nicholas Jackson and Sterling were better finishers, that game would have ended 3-1. Well, also if Haaland was a better finisher. Haaland being a better finisher. He was off. But you know what I mean. They had 3 clear-cut chances. Bournemouth are well coached, and They're the kind of team that can take advantage of such mistakes. I am not saying it will happen, but that possibility is open. They're not as solid as they have been in the past. Having said that, I will not be removing any of my Man City players. Alvarez, Haaland, Ederson will still be playing in this game. I expect some Pep roulette. I'm not sure if it will be Foden or Silva. Maybe a continuation of KDB off. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Will Ake play? Will Walker play? I have no idea. So just decide for yourselves. Just know that Haaland will play. For Bournemouth, it's the usual suspects. You have Solanke, you have Semenyo, you have Tavernier, and Clivert. If you want to be bold, you could get Senesi, but that's about it. Bournemouth have nice fixtures after the City game. They have Leicester, Burnley, Sheffield, Luton, Wolves, Everton, Crystal Palace. So after this Manchester City game, it might be time to look into their assets. City, on the other hand, have Luton, Man U, FC Copenhagen, Liverpool, Brighton, Arsenal. So the games are not exactly straightforward, but they are favourites anyway. Arsenal versus Newcastle. Their recent history is a mixed bag. Newcastle won their last encounter 1-0. Arsenal won the one before that 2-0. Then they drew 0-0. Then Newcastle beat them 2-0, and Arsenal beat them 2-0. It just goes to show that Newcastle have grown since they've gotten money. However, Arsenal are in amazing form. They have been averaging double digits in their midfield for their players. Having Trossard, Saka, or Odegaard has been a formula for great success recently. Newcastle are nowhere near the form that Arsenal are in, which makes them less than favourites for this one. Arsenal are clear favourites for this encounter. They just lost in the Champions League 1-0, but in the Premier League they've been great. After the Newcastle game, they have Sheffield, Arsenal, they play Porto again, then they have Chelsea, City, and Luton. So for the next 1-2 games, they are going to be favourites. And you can expect the Sheffield game to be a mighty walkover. In the last game, Newcastle equalised in the 90th minute against Bournemouth. Gordon and Ritchie scored. Now, Gordon, Trippier, and if you're lucky, maybe Longstaff will perform, or it might be their forward, whoever's playing on the day. I hesitate to recommend a Newcastle defender. Newcastle are nowhere near the defensive juggernaut they have been. If you're getting the defender, it's because you think they can score or assist. And to that end, you have only two options. You have either Trippier or Fabian Schär. If you're not getting one of those guys, do not enter their defense. Those are the only defenders in their team getting attacking returns. Lascelles was doing good, but people have recovered from the injuries and therefore he's gone down the pecking order. After the Arsenal game, they have a cup game, Blackburn. Then they have Wolves, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and Everton. So if you can figure out who you want from Newcastle, this will also be the right time to get into them. Next, you have Wolves versus Sheffield. Wolves lost 2-1 the last time these two teams played, and therefore there's a potential for a loss or a surprise in this fixture. I still believe that they are favourites, but that doesn't mean they will win. As you can see, I probably said they were favourites last time. Last time out, Wolves were very good and they beat Tottenham, who had been in great form up to that point. 2-1, with 2 goals from João Gomes. I think it's amazing that after all the sales they have made, that they're still a competitive and tough team to contend with. They brought in Gary O'Neill because they thought they were going to fight against relegation. But he has overperformed. The Korean guy should be back. He played the last game and he should still be somebody you consider. Neto and the goal scorer João Gomez. Maybe this is how his form begins. Part of the reason Sheffield were hammered by Brighton is because they got an early red card. If they should avoid such a result, they may be more competitive in this game. They could probably shock them again. And if that were to happen, you know it's going to be through McAtee, Vinicius, or Archer. Sheffield are like Bournemouth. They are probably worse because they are just being hammered. You see Luton lose, but Luton have competitive games. Sheffield don't really have that in them. After Wolves, they have Arsenal, Bournemouth, Man U, Fulham, Liverpool, Chelsea. In theory, I'm not seeing a victory in these few fixtures, but it's football and you never know. But they're the one team that you can look at the team they're playing and the thought in your head is mostly correct. Wolves, on the other hand, have, after the Sheffield game, Brighton, Newcastle, Fulham, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, then Burnley. If you believe in Wolves players, these are games that they can get results in. It doesn't seem to be a fixture too hard for them or too easy. I don't even know if that makes sense. If you just believe in the asset from Wolves, just get in it. West Ham versus Brentford. In their last encounter, Brentford were victorious. In fact, in their last two encounters. Actually, in their last 5 Premier League encounters, Brentford have beaten West Ham 4 out of 5 times. I didn't know that, and this makes them favourites for this encounter. If you're looking into Brentford assets, the best people to get right now are Luca Toni. Shit, I keep saying that. Ivan Toney. Reguilon, he seems to be performing from that wing-back position. And Mopé. And maybe if you're wild, you can get a Jensen or Janelt. Or Wisa even. But I can't imagine you'd want to get 3 people from Brentford right now. Especially since the double game week is over. West Ham are in relegation form. They haven't won since they beat Arsenal just around Christmas. They have been poor. Ward-Prowse, Bowen, Kudus are their strongest bets. But at this point, I don't even know why you guys still have Areola. They haven't won in 8 games. 8 games. They haven't won since December 28. We are now in February 22. That means they are winless in 2024. After Brentford, they have Everton and Burnley before they face Aston Villa and Newcastle. In theory, it's a ladder of difficulty, but that doesn't mean anything when you haven't won in your last 8 games. I honestly don't know how Moyes still has a job at this point. Brentford have been good. They lost to Man City and Liverpool, but that's to be expected. Tony has been helpful. He has done his part. Brentford have Chelsea, Arsenal, Burnley, Man U and Brighton after this. So their fixtures are not great. So if you can ease yourself out of their players, this would be a good time to do that. Apart from that, I wish you great returns this weekend. I hope the rest of your week goes well. See you on the pitch. Bye.